What's going on in Greece? In August, Greece avoided defaulting by making a critical payment to the European Central Bank, after receiving billions in aid from other Eurozone countries. Most of the money in the new bailout package will be used to repay existing debt rather than rebuilding the faltering Greek economy. In the EU, most of the real decision-making power, especially on delicate matters like money and immigrants, rests with 29 national governments and held accountable by voters and taxpayers. Tensions have grown more severe since the introduction of the euro in 1999, which now binds 19 nations into one currency zone. This illustrates the size of debt as compared to everything from the cost of the Beijing Games, valuation of Facebook, to the U.S. war on terror. Since the beginning of the debt crisis in 2010, most international banks and foreign investors have sold their positions in Greek bonds and other holdings. This illustrates debt as a percentage of gross domestic product plotted through the fourth quarter of 2014. The EU debt ratio, which currently sits at 87%, is a stark contrast to Greece's debt ratio of 176%. Italy, Portugal, and Spain are also potential regions of crisis. At the height of the debt crisis a few years ago, many experts believed Greece's problems would affect the rest of the world. If Greece defaulted on its debt and left the Eurozone, it was argued that it might create a global catastrophe larger than the collapse of Lehman Brothers. However, some do believe that if Greece left the Union, there would be no such catastrophe. Europe has put in additional safeguards to limit the so-called financial contagion in an effort to keep the problems from spreading to other countries. Greece is just a tiny part of the Eurozone economy. Some would contend that Greece could regain financial autonomy by leaving the Eurozone economy altogether. Despite the frustrations and endless negotiations, European political leaders see a united Europe as an imperative. At the same time, they still haven't fixed some of their biggest shortcomings of the Eurozone structure by creating a more federal-style system of transferring money as needed among members. The United States does this with its various states. The Eurozone could be better off without a country that constantly needs its neighbors' support. Exiting the Euro currency union and the European Union would also involve a legal minefield that no country has ventured to cross. There are also no provisions for departure, voluntary or forced, from the Euro currency union. Greece became the epicenter of Europe's debt crisis after Wall Street imploded in 2008. With global financial markets still reeling, Greece announced in 2009 that it had been understating its deficit figures for years, raising alarms about the soundness of Greek finances. Greece was shut out from borrowing in the financial markets. To avert calamity, the so-called Troika, or the International Monetary Fund, European Central Bank, and the European Commission issued the first of two international bailouts for Greece, which would eventually total more than 240 billion euros. The money was supposed to buy Greece time to stabilize its finances and quell the market fears that the Euro Union itself could break up. While it has helped, Greece's economic problems have not gone away. The economy has shrunk by a quarter in the last 5 years, and unemployment is above 25%. Many economists and many Greeks blame the austerity measures for much of the country's continuing problems. The leftist party rode to power this year promising to renegotiate the bailout, and Greek Prime Minister Tsipras said that the austerity had created humanitarian crisis all throughout Greece. The bailout money mainly goes toward paying off Greece's international loans rather than making its way into the economy. And the government still has a staggering debt load that it cannot begin to pay down unless a recovery takes hold. Almost 2/3 of Greece's debt is owed to the Eurozone bailout fund or other Eurozone countries. So while Greece's total debt is big, as much as double the country's annual economic output, it might not matter much if the government did not need to make payments for decades to come. By the time the money came due, the Greek economy could have grown enough that the sum no longer seemed daunting. In the short term, Greece has a problem making payments due on loans from the International Monetary Fund and on bonds held by the European Central Bank. Those obligations amount to more than 24 billion euros through the middle of 2018, and it is unlikely that either institution would agree to long delays in repayment.